Hi y'all, I am back with another video. I will pretty much be drawing like Daredevil Born Again stuff. Mainly Daredevil, but I also threw some Bullseye in there because he's quickly becoming one of my favorite characters personally. And I'm also just gonna talk about the show. So definitely spoilers ahead for y'all, just as a warning. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so first of all, what I'm doing here is I went in and like digitally sketched up my base sketches that I was gonna do of both Bullseyes that I did and all the Daredevils that I did, because in my upcoming video, I use, not just in my upcoming video, but you'll see in my upcoming video of Kaibak, but I use green pen as my base sketch, and I didn't want green pen to be all underneath these and everything because I was originally going to color them. And I did try to color some, but the markers just were not the colors or anything that I wanted to use. So all of what you're seeing, these 3 or 4 videos, are just my Procreate speed paint, so that you guys could see that process through that as well. And it's pretty much the same process as my traditional, like I have my base figure and everything, and I just kind of doodle everything out. But like I said, I just didn't want the green pen, and so what I ended up doing was I used transfer paper and I printed these out, and then I used transfer paper to put those in my sketchbook, and you'll see how I did that here in a minute. And I'll show you guys like how I did that right now actually. So I'll have my sketch, my transfer paper, everything and all that. I'll show you the process. I used wax paper instead of like the expensive paper that you have to use. So you just put that on your sketch, and then you trace it on the wax paper. And then what you do is you have the wax paper is the top layer, and then the black graphite transfer paper is the bottom layer. And then you trace that over your sketchbook, which y'all will, like I said, see the whole process. But yeah, I just take you through that entire process of that, so you guys can watch the whole thing and just see what I'm doing. But let's go ahead and get into Daredevil Born Again while I'm just doodling and sketching everything. Very, very big spoiler warning ahead. Just anyone that hasn't seen the show yet and they want to save this till or watch later, or like doesn't want any spoilers or anything, I will be spoiling the show, so just as a heads up. So let me first start off by saying I really loved the show overall. I really liked it. I was a big Netflix Daredevil series girly. I watched it when it first came out with my dad, and I loved it. I did a season 1 Daredevil cosplay even recently, which is on my Instagram, on my art Instagram at KW Paintings. But I am such a Daredevil girly. He is one of my favorite characters, Marvel characters. And honestly, I need to draw him more. I don't draw him that much, which is kind of sad. I used to draw him all the time, but I archived most of those posts. But yeah, I'm such a Daredevil girly. I have comics and like all these things. But yeah, so I was super stoked about the Born Again series. It was one of my most highly anticipated shows of this year. I absolutely love Charlie and Vincent. I think they portray Matt and Fisk really, really well, personally. But yeah, so I'm a Daredevil girly. But so yeah, I was super stoked to see these characters come back after so long, and I'm so excited to hear that they're making a Born Again season 2. So I'm glad that like they know that it's something that the audience wants, and like they're not just ending it. So like let's get into it. Let's like talk about the series itself instead of me just talking about how much I love Daredevil. So the first episode, they came out, I think they came out just like swinging right off the bat. It is probably my second favorite episode of the 9 episode series, because I love some of the cinematography choices that they used in the episode to show Matt's senses. We have never, like, they didn't really portray it like that in the original Daredevil series. And I really loved how they showed that, like, a lot. I love it when like directors and things are creative to show that, and it's not like too over the top. That, and I have to admit, I feel like more recently become a Bullseye or Dex girly. Not gonna lie, the actor is such a sweetheart. I can't think of his name right now. Like I said, recent fangirl. But yeah, and the character is so, like, what we've seen of Dex in Born Again is more deep into the character, and I really love that. And I actually went through and rewatched Daredevil season 3 just to like see more of Dex's character again, because I didn't remember liking him that much originally as I do now. And I actually really like Dex. I think they could have done a few different things different with his character in the original Daredevil series. But like his fighting sequences are so cool. I love his fight sequences. And that's one of my favorite things from this first episode. To tie it back to Born Again. That's why it's probably my second favorite episode, is because of what happens between Foggy, Dex, and Matt. Because, you know, we know what happens to Foggy. I think that coming out right off the bat with that big episode and big scene, first of all, they tie it in super well later on. And well, maybe not super well, but they tie it in well later on. And I really like how they tie it in, honestly. I think it makes sense, and I like how they kind of explain everything with that. I also like how they actually like show the events that happened to lead to what happened to Foggy, and like they directly talk about it and they connect everything, and they're not just like, oh yeah, what happened at the end of this is this. But yeah, so I'm glad that they actually visually and verbally explain it. And then just to catch you up on what I'm doing here in the video, this is where I put the graphite / trace paper down, and then I'm putting that wax paper over, like what I said I was going to do, and then that's when you trace your outline that you put on your wax paper, and that will go onto the graphite paper, and then you lift both up, and you'll have your sketch. But yeah, back to what I was saying about Born Again. I think that, like, to have that big of a choice or a big of an event in Matt's life and in the characters' lives, like, right off the bat, and just happen right right out the gate, the very first episode. I think it's like one of the biggest life-changing moments for Matt, and you can see him struggling with that and with some of those things in relation to what happened to Foggy. Throughout the entire 9 episodes. And I think that, it's going to be an event that kind of constantly lingers in the series. Whether it be through Matt because of how he acts now, or whether it be like other characters like Karen or something, I think it's going to probably always be a lingering element in the series. Or at least that's what I think personally. But yeah, and I loved the initial fight scene in Josie's with Dex and Matt in the stairwell. I love how they brought the stairwell scene, because I feel like they used a lot of hallway scenes and stairwell scenes and things in the original Daredevil series, and honestly, I really liked them. Like in season 1 with the yellow hallway, that is my favorite episode. In Daredevil Netflix series, in that original series. And so I'm glad that I don't know if it was a wink towards that, maybe like a subtle design choice in relation to the original Daredevil series from Netflix, but I'm really glad that they decided to add that scene. Even if it was like just a short scene, I'm still happy they did it, because it made my little heart happy to see it. And then, like, the scene, once they get onto the roof, still in episode 1, is such a powerful scene, I feel like, for Matt. I mean, Matt and Dex, but really Matt, because, like, you can hear Foggy's heartbeat, and there's always this lingering heartbeat and everything, and I think, honestly, that the heartbeat is there towards, like, since closer to the beginning of the episode. I think I remember hearing it before, like, Foggy even gets shot. But I honestly don't remember, now I'm trying to think of it. But I think I did. I think I remember hearing a heartbeat before Foggy got hit. So I think that was, like, a super cool design element, sound element. I don't know what you would call it properly, but I really liked it. And then, like, you hear it up until, like, Foggy passes, and I love it. I love it when they do that with Matt. I think it's so cool, because that's, like, one of his main senses that I feel like he uses often, is he listens to people's heartbeats. And so I just love it when we hear it. I think it's so cool. And especially how they used it in that episode, I think was very smart. Very, like, I think it was a good choice. For the episode. And then, like, just like I said, that scene where Matt is holding Dex on the roof and everything, and, like, just the exchange of emotion, like, they don't really talk an awful lot. Like, Dex really doesn't talk a lot, but the exchange of emotion between the two, especially Matt, Charlie did amazing. I think is so impactful in the sense of, like, you can see it through the character, and, like, it feels like they're actually feeling that. Like, in that moment, I think it's so great. I really loved the first episode. It was my second favorite episode, personally. Like, in the 9-episode series. And I'm sorry, but this video is probably gonna be more like a podcast than anything else, but that's what I'm making the video for, is honestly to kind of nerd out while I draw. So, yeah, I had 43 minutes of me rambling, I'm sorry. But yeah, no, so episode 1 was great overall. In conclusion, I really liked it. Out of 5 stars, I would probably rate 3.5 to 4. Personally, like I said, I really love Daredevil. My dad watched the series. He didn't like it as much as I did, which is fair. It's understandable. I get it. Everyone has their own taste. But that's what I'm saying, is like, my review can be very different from someone else's, because I really love the kind of investigative, like, vigilante shows a lot. Which is also why I like Daredevil so much. I wouldn't say he's necessarily investigative, but, like, he works cases and things, and I really like that stuff. So, my opinion and my rating can be very different than someone else's. But yeah, so on to episode 2, now that we're 17 minutes in. I liked episode 2. I liked that they introduced the White Tiger. Rest in peace to the actor that played Hector. I honestly don't know his name off the top of my head, so I'm sorry. But it's a shame of what happened. That being said, I think he played the character well. At least from what we got to see of the character, which was like just a trial, essentially. Which is a shame, because I wanted to see more of the character, but maybe we'll get the female White Tiger, which I've actually drawn. She was in my sketchbook tour. It wasn't like a full drawing, but it was a little sketch. But yeah, like, episode 2 I really liked it. Well, I don't know if I'd say that I really liked it. It was kind of the most boring episode, in my opinion. Like, Fisk is trying to become mayor and everything, and BB gets introduced and all that. If I remember correctly, I think that was episode 2. But yeah, no, I like that they finally introduced the White Tiger into the MCU. One of my more favorite underrated characters. And honestly, even I myself, like, forget that the White Tiger exists sometimes. Even though I've drawn them, both male and female, because there's been multiple White Tigers. I cannot tell you all of them. I can tell you Hector. I know that there's a lady. I don't know her name, even though she is, like, the first version of White Tiger that I was ever introduced to. I can't think of her name. Because, like I said, she's such a underrated, like, character, in the sense of no one knows about them. So like I said, glad they finally introduced a White Tiger into the MCU. And supposedly, I don't know if this is legit, but supposedly the female White Tiger is going to be introduced as well. Now that Hector is no longer in the series. I was trying to think of a way to say that YouTube wouldn't get mad. Now that Hector's no longer in the series, But, yeah. I just think, like, that the circumstances that we were introduced to the White Tiger, at least Hector, was a little unfortunate, especially with, like I said, how short-lived it was to have him as the White Tiger. It was for 2 episodes? 2 or 3 episodes? I think it was 2 episodes. Yeah, 2 episodes. It was episode 2 and 3. Because literally we had virtually the entire trial in episode 2. And that's like all of episode 2. It's just his trial and stuff going on with Fisk. So like I said, probably, I don't know if I'd say it's my least favorite episode, but it's definitely, in my opinion, the most boring episode. Just because, like I said, we spend almost the entire episode in the courtroom or just talking, which I know is important for, like, show development, and we do get good information, and like I said, we get introduced to White Tiger, but, yeah, it's just, yeah, and then the whole thing, they talk about vigilantism and everything, and the corrupt police and stuff as well, and I think this episode, or episode 3, is where Frank Castle specifically starts getting hinted at, in the show. But yeah, overall, yeah, episode 2 was okay. Yeah, I think the main thing that I took away from that was, like, they finally introduced the White Tiger. And I think that's, like, my main point of that entire episode. I think out of 5, I would probably rate that one, like, a 2.5, 3 out of, because, I mean, it was still portrayed well, but like I said, it was just a bit boring for my taste. Episode 3, I don't really have anything, like, else to add, because I feel like episode 3 was just, like, a continuation of episode 2, and I think that kind of sucks, because, like, I don't know. So I was gonna say if I remember right, but yeah, no, Hector gets, taken care of in that episode. I don't know what YouTube will allow me to say, so I can't say the K word, but, yeah, so, like I said, as I talked about episode 2, super disappointed in the sense of, like, we didn't get to see much of the character. I understand things that happened with the actor and everything, so that's super sad, but I hope that we get to see more of White Tiger in general as a character in the future. Like I said, I know that there's a female version, and that's the version I was introduced to, or I know of, originally speaking. So I just hope that we get to see more of the character overall, because I feel like they could do something really fun with it, and I actually liked the more modern style suit that we got to see for, like, 2 minutes throughout episode 2 and 3, because I feel like we do see it a little bit in 2 with, like, video or whatever, if I remember correctly, but we do definitely see it in episode 3, and honestly, I want to draw it, I just haven't, and I don't have any excuse for it, I kind of forget, like I said, such an underrated character. But yeah, so overall, episode 3 was okay. yeah, I don't really have anything else in addition to say about it, because, like, again, I feel like pretty much the only thing that really happened in that episode was, like, they further hinted about Frank and Hector got dealt with. So yeah, I don't really have anything else to add to that, but I think I would rate the episode probably like a 2.5, like I did the last one, 2.5, maybe 3. But yeah. Episode 4. I liked episode 4. I thought it was okay. I think that really what stood out for me was that big scene between Matt and Frank, when Matt goes and finds Frank and everything, and they have that whole talk. I think that conversation between Matt and Frank kind of pushed Matt a little bit towards the Daredevil direction. I don't know if the conversation needed to happen per se for that to happen, but I think it kind of moved things along, if that makes any sense. I hope that it does. But I think that was probably one of the most powerful scenes in that series. I really liked it. And I think that, like, it shows their dynamic further. I also think it's kind of funny, the little interaction between them after Matt hits Frank. I know Daredevil's still correct, but you know, after Matt hits Frank, and he's like, "That's the first ill thing you've done, Red." I also love how he calls him Red. Like, I'm gonna lie, I love it. It makes me so happy. It makes me kind of giddy. But, yeah, so, yeah, I think that scene was a really well-written scene, between those two characters. And I think that the way it was portrayed was really well done. I think that the way that Charlie acted out that scene as Matt, and like all the emotion, was so good. Like, I love Charlie's acting. I really do. He is one of my favorite actors. But yeah, no, I think it was such a powerful scene, and that's like my main takeaway from that episode. Like, that's what I remember. And so I think that, like, that is probably my third favorite episode. Like, out of top 3, I think that's my third favorite episode. I think I would probably rate it like a 4.5, though, give or take ish. I was trying to like look and see. Episode 5, I was thinking episode 5 when I was about to say something. But yeah, no, episode 4, I think, like I said, I would rate a 4.5 out of 5. Or maybe like a 4 out of 5. Just because I think that, you know, like I said, that one scene was so good. But I think the episode flowed decently. There's a couple moments where I was like, I don't feel like hearing this again. Which is a lot of the moments with Fisk during his whole campaign thing. I understand that it has to happen for the story. And honestly, they did that bit, like, flowed it really well. Credit where credit's due. I got a little tired of Fisk. Around, like, the beginning of all this, where he's, like, really pushing to try and, quote-unquote, make New York a better place. But he doesn't. Spoiler alert. This whole video is a spoiler alert. But yeah. So, like I said, that episode is like a 4.5 out of 5. Episode 5, I believe, is what I'm on. Yeah, episode 5, Matt has his whole, like, bank robbery ordeal, and we see Daredevil come back to Matt, and I love it so much. I really liked the episode, overall, just because, like I said, we see Daredevil come back to Matt, and that's about all I have to say about that one. A lot more happens, but that's about all I have to say about that one. I think I'd rate it like a 3.5 out of 5, maybe a 4, probably 3.5. Episode 6 is really when we first really get introduced to Muse, I feel like. I think he gets hinted at or something before all this, but I think episode 6 is, like, his real episode. And the actor that played him was also in the Wednesday show. And he's also the bad guy that acts like he's the good guy. I don't know the actor's name, but for some reason he plays that character, like, kind of decently well. I do wish we kind of got to see more of Muse as a character, just because I feel like they could have done a little bit more with him. Because, like, episode 7, he just gets taken care of. Sorry, I have to think of a way to say it that, like, YouTube won't get mad. He gets the K word. So, like, we don't get to see much of him, which is a kind of a good thing, because, like, he's not a good character, technically. Like, he's not a good guy. He's a really bad guy. And he was going to cause a lot more problems. I just think that he was very short-lived, like White Tiger was. And I wish that we could have seen a little bit more of him, because I feel like they could have done more with the character. But yeah, overall, episode 6, I'm probably going to rate it like a 4. For me, personally. It was one of the more interesting episodes. And then the following episode, episode 6, I think I would rate about the same. I think I'd also rate it about 4, because that's when we really see Muse fight a bit more. That's when we see, like, the interaction between him and Matt, and then I forget the therapist lady's name, but yeah, I think that episode just kind of ends a separate plot point from what the show was going for. So it ends, like, another plot point that they had going on, which, I mean, yeah, it's kind of a good thing, but like I said, I kind of wish that we had more of the character instead of Matt just going and fighting him and essentially taking care of them. Even though the therapist lady technically dealt with Muse, Matt was going to deal with Muse, but he didn't because she got to him first, kind of. But I think the concept of the character is kind of interesting, and I would like to draw him because I really like his mask design. I would say his costume design, but I don't like his costume design. I just like his mask design. Because I think it's interesting. But yeah, I think they could have done more with the character. Again, I think that episode, I said a 4 out of 5, but realistically, I think it's going to be like a 3.5 for me, personally. Just because, like I said, I feel like they could have done more, but they kind of didn't, which is fine. The character needed to be dealt with in a short-lived way anyway, so I understand. And that was episode 7, just to reiterate that, because I know I'm rambling a lot. Episode 8 is my absolute favorite episode. I can go on about this episode, and honestly, in the video, I'm painting Dex right now, so it's only fitting that I talk about this episode anyway. This episode, like I said, was my favorite episode. I would give this episode a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved some of the visual choices that they made with Dex and with Matt, like lighting. They made a lot of blue connections to Dex and a lot of red connections to Matt, because Dex is Bullseye, and then obviously Matt is Daredevil. And they actually did that a lot with Matt throughout season 1, is they connected him to red to show, like, Daredevil was coming back. And I loved it. so much. I love that kind of stuff. And I'm sure you can find videos talking about it, like visual implications of the series throughout all over YouTube. But, like, me personally, I loved what some of the visual choices that they decided to do in this series. Some of the greatest choices ever. That being said, though, I really love this episode because Dex has quickly become one of my favorite characters of, like, the Daredevil universe. Because, like I said in the beginning of the video, I wasn't really a Dex girly before. But like I said, I seriously went through and rewatched Daredevil Season 3 just to, like, see his character again. And, yeah, I think they did more with his character in Daredevil Born Again compared to what they did with his character in Daredevil Season 3. And I don't remember if he's in Season 2, but to compare what they did with him in Season 3, just because, I feel like we got to see the character on a more personal level in this one, in the sense of, like, we got to understand his personality a bit better, we got to see how he handled other situations better, other than, like, he's getting manipulated, and, like, we see him kind of connect the dots and things a bit better in this episode. And try to take care of things and all that. And we see how he ties in with, more directly, with the Fisks and everything. And I loved how they explained it. And it makes so much sense. And it's so good. And I hope he just needs a hug. Bless his heart. But yeah. So, I love this episode. I loved the whole ballroom scene with Mrs. Fisk and with Matt. It was so good. It was so good. It was so good seeing like him Matt tie everything together. Or maybe that was the next scene? Or the next episode? No, it was this episode because he dances with Mrs. Fisk and Mrs. Fisk and, like, tells her he found out it wasn't Fisk and it was her and all these things and, like, how she's actually the mastermind. I love how they chose to approach that in the sense of, like, Matt acts like he's being a playboy, but he's actually being very direct and everything, because let's be honest, Matt is a playboy. He's, like, he gets around, but yeah. And then, like, I love how they showed how Matt would protect Fisk, but not Dex in this episode. And you can, if you watch, you can see, like, Dex have a realization moment after he tries to shoot Fisk before he leaves. And also that scene when he's, like, setting up to take care of Fisk, and it's just blue, is so brilliant. Because, like I said, they tie blue with Dex, and then they tie red with Matt, and I love it so much. Another thing, though, how they deal with the police commissioner, I didn't love, but also didn't hate, because I kind of like when shows don't shy away from, like, the brutality of characters and things. So I think it was interesting the way that they chose to do that, but at the same time, I'm like, I kind of like how they actually show, like, characters like that on a deeper level, personally. Just because I feel like you can understand the character a little bit better, on that level, rather than, like, them just not showing a lot of things to, like, shy away from it and make it PG, which is why I'm glad that they decided to make this one. I think it's R-rated. It would make sense if it was for gore, but yeah, I really liked this episode. It's my favorite episode. I would rate it a 5 out of 5, personally. But like I said, that's my personal opinion. And then episode 9, the finale, I didn't hate it. Oh, wait, no, episode 9 was when the commissioner was killed, not episode 8. Sorry. Misinformation there. I didn't hate it. I liked it. I liked all of the fighting scenes. I liked how Frank, Karen, and Matt all came together. I like how they showed the dynamic between the two. I like how Matt mentions their heartbeats. There's a lot to say about that one, but I think that would also take me just a whole nother video to talk about. But like I said, the things I mentioned were like the key points that I took away from that episode, the finale. And honestly, I think I would rate that like a 4.5, maybe even a 5. It might instead be my third favorite episode instead of the other one that I said was my third favorite. That one's probably my fourth favorite. But yeah, I really liked the finale. I like how they set things up, for the most part, kind of, for the future season. And I'm hoping to, like, see more of characters that, like, character dynamics that we're getting to see. And I would also love to see more of Dex. I would like for them to expand on his character, because I like his character. I've become a Dex girly, not gonna lie. But, yeah, like I said, I really liked the finale, and I really liked the show. I definitely recommend watching the show, if you're interested. Daredevil Born Again. I really liked it. But like I said, I'm a Daredevil girly, and I'm now a Dex girly, and I have always really loved Daredevil. Since the Netflix show first came out, and it's been one of my fixations for like the longest time. It just went dormant, and now it's back. So I will be drawing more of them, especially more of Dex, because he deserves a hug. Especially after what Mrs. Fisk did to him. In episode, I think it was 8. Yeah, episode 8. So, I mean, technically it was throughout all the episodes, but you get told in episode 8 more directly what she does to him. But yeah, that's all I have to say out of, 43 minutes of me talking. So, currently I am just finishing up the sketchbook pages, and you guys will see the finished products and everything here in a minute. Like pictures and everything. But yeah, I hope you guys have a good day, and I hope y'all, or a good day or night wherever you're from. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was a lot of talking, but my next one's also gonna be a lot of talking, so I'm sorry. But have a good night. Bye, y'all.